Hello, and welcome to Making Comics, the podcast. Okay. Before I let this podcast play out, let me just preface it by saying this was recorded in 2012. It was shortly after I made $107,000 on the Remind 2 Kickstarter campaign, and my head was spinning. I got on the horn with Daniel Lieske. We recorded this episode of Making Comics, the podcast. And so I've always hesitated about releasing this one because it's just kind of weird. It was this weird moment in my life where my head was kind of spinning. I was in the clouds, like I say in the podcast, but it was right before the weight of the whole thing came crashing down. And so it's kind of a weird, bittersweet moment. And it's not really, I don't feel like it's very much grounded in reality for me. I've learned a lot since then. There's still some great stuff. I might chime in every now and then when I have an update or a new opinion. Maybe I'll chime in. And I'll scroll through a bunch of art of Remind, of my book. Also, to get a free copy of Remind, the book I'm talking about, just go to coffeetablecomics.com, scroll down, and join the mailing list, and you'll get a free digital PDF copy of Remind Volume 1, my first graphic novel, and you'll also be on my mailing list, and you'll know whenever I have a new Kickstarter launching. I'm actually doing one right now, but if you don't want to miss anything else from me, sign up for my mailing list, and I'll let you know every time I have something new out. All right, back to the podcast. So, I apologize for not being around for a little while. If any of you have been following my progress, there's been a lot of stuff going on, and my head's kind of been in clouds. Daniel and I recorded this podcast about a month ago now, maybe a little more, shortly after I finished my Kickstarter, and made over $107,000 for Remind Volume 2. And so this was basically a discussion we just had about this whole subject of what now, and what does this mean for this whole situation. So anyway, I figure I better release it now better than later. So here you go. Please forgive me if I haven't been keeping track of everything you're doing, because I've been totally keeping my head down. I'm hardly even online right now, and I just realized today that you've launched Chapter 4, and I was like, wait, what's going on here? so I ran over to your site and looked at it, and I didn't read it yet, but yeah,
I think you have a very good excuse for that. I would presume that your head is spinning around yourself.
Yeah.
For quite some time now, and that's you experienced some extraordinary stuff in the last few weeks.
I know
I can't even believe it.
I know I can't either, and it's
yet.
It's I guess I'm not afraid that it's changing things, but part of me is thinking, like, is this going to change things in a way to where I pursue things differently, and it screws up some of the mojo I was, having with how focused I was on it. I mean, I don't know why it would. It's just what the things that I'm thinking.
Oh, you are afraid. You are afraid of the hugeness of the impact, are you?
Yeah. Well, like before, I was going after this like. Well, I mean, I'm still am, but I approached it like, no one cares what I'm doing. I'm going to do this thing the way I think it's right.
Yeah.
And I don't care if it makes money. I'm gonna show people how I think it needs to be done, and the way what I would like to find, and yes, I'm still trying to do that now, but now I'm starting to think, okay, how if I could do this every year, and who knows if Kickstarter will be the thing every year that does it, but this idea that you're building a fan base that could potentially support you and continue to buy stuff as long as I keep moving forward and making good progress and having something good that's valuable to people. And I don't know why it wouldn't work now. I mean, the money was proven to exist. Like, I had this weird goal I was telling my wife about, like, a year ago. Like, I was like, I want to make 100,000 in profits from Remind somehow, like, and that was just a weird thing that I was like, if I have this outrageous goal that I'm pushing for, and I believe I can eventually do it, then maybe, maybe it will happen. And I did believe that I could eventually do it, but I thought it would just, be a different approach.
You just spoiled your highest goal.
And it just
that's
hit
really,
it.
really a problem.
I'm like, that's weird. And I just realized, and I told my wife, I was like, you realize I hit that goal?
No.
Like, what do I do now? Like, I guess I got to have new goals. And so I've been on this, like, this little weird, soul-searching journey the last week or so. Like, what are my new challenges that I need to pursue? What are the new, I like I say, I can't just rely on Kickstarter, but I know that there's something that has shifted since, my first book to where I think I can see the profit in this. And I think I can see how this could take over my career as my career, but how do I pursue those new goals now? Because now it's not just, now it's a potential to be a new career, not just a hobby with outrageous goals.
That's. I have to say that I followed your campaign quite closely, and with every day it unraveled. I couldn't believe less what I was seeing, and I was really shocked by the outcome, because it what it ignited in me was a couple of thoughts. One of the first thoughts was, I really, by the way, I really found the connection you made between this the 1,000 True Fans meme and the Kickstarter campaign when it hit 1,000 backers. This connection made a lot of sense, because what really strikes me about successful Kickstarter campaigns is that you often see very huge amounts, very impressive amounts of money that are funded, with a relatively low number of backers. Yeah. Well, I mean, think about it. You did this with what about 1,300 backers, if I'm not wrong, and my first thought was, wasn't he going to pay for 3,500 books of book 2 with the 24,000 of his original funding goal? Well, why would you need so many books if 1,300 people are enough to give you a yearly salary? If you see it like that. Well,
I mean,
like this way.
When people see how much money is raised, like I think of 100,000, and at first I was like, this could be a yearly salary, but there's the Kickstarter fees, there's taxes, because that's all income.
Of course.
There's printing the books, which is going to be quite a bit more than what I estimated, just because there's so much other stuff I'm doing in the making of book. But the thing is, if I could, I'm not going to keep hardly any of that. I want to keep like 10% of it and put it into some investment account. All right, I gotta just chime in here. I had put aside about 10,000 out of that campaign, but with the printing and shipping of this $100,000 stretch goal, which was another little hardbound book that I promised, I ate into all of that money, and I actually had to take freelance jobs to pay for another probably $15,000 worth of expenditures. And so at the end of the day, this campaign cost me about 15 grand. The shipping alone was about 30 grand, maybe a little bit more. I'll put a chart up here of some of the expenses, and this isn't even a complete list, because I kept having to ship books, and I kept having other stuff. In a perfect world, I really wanted to be able to save that money, but I overpromised like crazy on these stretch goals, because I was too excited about pushing people to the next level. And so I promised and promised and promised and promised and promised. And then it was this huge amount of work to fulfill a lot of promises that all cost money. So anyway, back to the show. But the rest I do want to keep into the business. And I guess like when I look at like the amount of books I'm printing, Kickstarter is just one small fraction of what I'm seeing when I think of my publishing company, because I'm, my next goals and steps are to get a deal with a distributor who, like, and there's one locally here where I live that I really want to get partnered with. And what they do is they will take over my Amazon account. They'll take all the excess books and warehouse them. They have like 20 or 30 sales reps all around the world that are constantly pushing my books. And they'll just take over all this business junk that we've talked about before, that just drives me nuts, that I don't want to do anymore. And I love the selling stuff, like the first print run directly to my fan base, my core audience that is waiting for the next book. I think that's really an important thing to do, and that's what we're doing with Kickstarter, and that's what that $100,000 is from. But I think there's the potential to make another $100,000 in profits from selling all the rest of the books through the old school channels, through conventions, through when I announce a pre-order on my website. Once the books actually arrive, so there's a lot more there.
That's what I wanted to say. Of course, you're totally right to say that if you see the $100,000, there are people that mistake this for your profit. That is all pure profit. Of course, you have costs. Of course, you have fees and taxes. But you also have to see the stock that you will have after the printing, which is also worth, like you said, maybe $100,000 if you would all sell it. Yeah. So, my perspective on that was to a very simple thought from an artist's perspective. If it is possible, and you showed that it is possible, if it's possible to finance the production of a book via Kickstarter and make $100,000, why would you even care to go all the hard route to sell the physical copies if you could just cater to your backers, and that was it? You would print one in your case, just to make this a hypothetical thing. In your case, you could print 1,300 books, or of course you have several tiers where people receive 2 books, and you would have to calculate that in the right way. But just to keep this thought. You could do this business on a very small level where you wouldn't even have to bother with distribution, where it would all be only this 1 month of Kickstarter, where you're collecting your customers, so to say. You earn the money, and you do that every year, and you would be done. That would be a possibility.
Definitely,
I guess.
And as far as doing the physical. The manual work as far as sending out books to customers, yes, I 100% agree with that. That's all I would want to do is like these pre-order type things. But I see, I don't want to just put my eggs in the Kickstarter basket. I don't want to just gamble on that. Yeah. And it's not. I don't think it's a gamble. But the thing is, I see all these channels that work. They've worked for years and years and years, and it's not just going to switch and not work because digital stuff is coming out. It's still going to work for a long time, and there's these things in place that as long as I make those connections, it kind of can get pulled out of my hands, and I don't have to do anything anymore. As long as all I would have to do, in a perfect world. What I would want to do is make a first printing that's 5,000 copies. The first 2,000 are signed. Yeah. They all sell out in pre-orders. And then the second printing goes straight to a distributor, and it feeds all these Amazon channels, bookstores, librarians, because there's a huge market for that stuff. It's just I don't want to spin my wheels chasing all these different avenues. And I think I'm more effective straight to my number one audience, which is the people who will pre-order from me. And but with both of those things going, and even like a web version, and I just made that deal with Comixology where now there's the digital version, and that will come out. It'll be interesting because that will come out before the book will actually come out in print, and so I'm assuming I'll make some decent sales as well on the digital before the book even comes out. So I just don't know, you know. Yeah. But I look at it like all these, they're just all different streams of income, you know. Last year I was thinking of streams of income like little links on my website and selling advertising on my website, and those were all these little streams, but they equal so little that I'm almost thinking of dropping those for my next book that I start, and just focusing on the multiple bigger streams of income, like, you know, having a distributor in place and focusing on my Kickstarter type and pre-order sales and whatever else I can figure out. You know, because I think the potential is huge. And, you know, I've talked to a lot of people about this because, you know, there's a lot of authors who, you know, have book deals with huge publishers, and their advances are $30,000 or something like that, and they don't get any royalties after that. And this is for a huge print run of like 30 or 40,000 books. And I'm like, you know, how could anybody live on that? And that's the complaint, is you can't. You know, but the thing that's different with me is I'm self-publishing, so I'm the publisher. Obviously, the publisher is making a lot more than those artists who are publishing those, who are making the books. But since I'm the publisher and the creator and the writer, you know, I think there's a potential for a massive income from this. You know, and I'm not going after this for just the money, but man, if it can replace my income, then yeah, I'm going to do it, obviously, you know. So that's the way I look at it.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's a very healthy way to look at it. Because, well, the potential obviously is there.
Yeah.
You would be nuts if you wouldn't be thinking about that and how to exploit the potential.
Yeah. But I still want to focus on you know, blending the new school and old school approach to publishing. And I really think it's offering stuff for free so everyone can look at it for free as much as they want, and then selling to the collectors, selling the nice, you know, physical book that is a collector's item to the collectors. And you know, that's been my approach from the start, and I want to sell directly to my fans, you know. As long as I can keep that number of that first printing under 5,000, I think I can handle it. You know, I mean, that's huge, but in my mind, that's kind of been the goal for like book 5, is I want to get to where my first printing is 5,000 copies that I sell out on book 5, you know? Yeah. And,
all right.
So I don't want it to just, I want it to be a niche, because I'm not doing it for Hollywood. I'm not doing it for any of that. I'm doing it for artists who love comics, who love art, who love design. You know, it's definitely a niche story. It's definitely a niche look. And so I'm trying to keep true to that, but I want to allow it to spread as much as I can, you know. I don't know. I'm just kind of talking.
Yeah. No. It's obviously it's quite a comfortably large niche that you are living in there. But I totally get what you're saying, and I think.
Well, that's what I mean. Before you go on, that's what's surprising to me is it turns out that even though I was focusing on this little niche, what I thought was a little niche, you know, it's actually, I've just scratched the surface of it too. I know, you know, there's so many people who don't even know who a Kickstarter is. There's so many people who buy my book that say, this is the only comic I've ever bought, and I love it, and I'm obsessed with it. And I went out and bought a pad of paper so I could start drawing my own comic, even though they've never gotten into comics before. So, it's just, I don't know. To me, I've scratched a fraction of a % of the people who would be interested. And so, yeah, it's just...
But the cool thing about that is that this fraction already works for you, and works for the independent creator who doesn't have to share the hugest part of the profit with or like a publisher or something like that. And that's interesting because you can live on a niche if you're effective and if you don't lose a lot of your momentum in the machinery, so to say. Because if you were working with a publisher, you couldn't live on 2,500 books or 3,500 books, or even 5,000 books wouldn't be enough to to get you, the artist, enough money after the machinery has taken its part, its share. So I think what you said before, that the advantage of being the artist, the creator, even writer and illustrator in one person, you don't even have to split the money in two, between a writer and artist, and you don't even have to talk about splitting it with a publisher or a distributor. So that's really a key part in all this.
A lot of people always, when I say I want to be the publisher, the writer, artist, all this stuff, and even shipping out the first printings, a lot of people, their first reaction is, oh, that's a lot of work, Jason. Like, are you sure you really want to do that? And my response to that is, of course. Like, I go to work for 8 to 10 hours a day to work for a boss to make enough money to barely pay my bills, and I'm doing everything they ask me to, and then I come home and I have a fraction of the time to spend with my family and work on my own stuff. It's like, why is there even a question of, would you rather work on your own thing and even spend, even if I spend 6 hours of it a day, I could get so much done. Like, what I've realized, I took off the last 2.5 weeks of work after the campaign ended, because I'm like, I need to get this thing done, because I didn't have enough time to work on it while I was doing the campaign. So a whole month went by and I didn't get anything done. And my deadlines for the printer are coming up, but that I imposed on myself. But what I've learned is I could potentially get a graphic novel done. If I have it all thumbnailed, I could get the whole book done in probably 3 months if I had full time. Like, this is like 120 pages. Because I've been able to.
What you're wanting to tell us is that you could make $500,000 in 1 year, because
that's not what I'm saying. I'm saying I could.
If you think it through.
But what I'm saying is, I would. My goal in life is not to sit and work for 12 hours a day on art stuff. My goal is to work 6 hours a day on something I really love, and then spend the rest of the time doing other things, you know what I'm saying, with family or surfing or whatever it is. And so anything that gets me closer to that goal, like in work, if you want to move up the ladder, you have to work harder and longer hours and be more dedicated and have your life revolve around work, if you want to climb up the corporate ladder at a studio or something. And like, I really think doing all this stuff for your personal business is going to eventually be a lot less work than just trying to move up the corporate ladder for somebody else, for some other studio. And so I guess that's my argument to people who are like, wow, that's a lot of work, Jason. And I'm like, you know what? My campaign made $107,000 in a month. That. Yes, it was a lot of work. For the hour and a half every morning, I had to get up and type a post and update and keep things going. But that was only an hour and a half a day, I mean... Yeah.
I know exactly what you're saying. It's unbelievable what boost your work gets if you can work full-time on it. So you are totally right. I can clearly imagine what you are thinking. What you could do if you just would be working each and every day, all the time that you wanted to, on these projects. You could possibly be just happy with making 2 books a year, which would be comfortably doable for you.
I just want to do one book.
And would be fine. Okay. I see. You can do surfing in California.
Well, that's right. Out of LA. That's part of my goal. Like, California is so expensive to live. If I could just move any other state that's out, to one side or the other. Move up to Oregon or something. I would cut my bills in half, and then I don't have to make. I don't have to make the same amount of money just to live. So.
You could do a book every 5 years or something like that.
Well, I do have pretty ambitious goals with the stories I want to tell.
But that's cool.
So I wouldn't want to just do the bare minimum. But I think
Yeah.
1 year is enough to please the fan base. You know what I'm saying? Like, if my favorite artists would do completely their own thing and do one awesome book every year, I'd love it, you know?
Yeah.
And,
I guess you're right.
I could.
And by the way, I really love your approach to say, what can I do to work less? Because that's totally right. What you say is, if you achieve a certain amount to earn a certain amount of money, you could see it that way. How can I maximize my profit? But you could also say, I just concentrate on a certain goal of what I want to earn in a year, and I have to work less to reach that. It's all the better.
Yeah.
That's a really nice thought and approach to these things.
Yeah, because I feel like since I started working professionally as an artist, I don't hardly celebrate holidays. I don't hardly have vacations. There's so many things that I just feel like I don't get to do because I'm so busy with work. And I'm blessed. It's great because I am in that position where I get art jobs and I get good jobs that pay really good, and you know most of them I'm proud of and stuff. But you know, I keep telling my wife every year for the last 4 years or so, like, I wish I could take off from October, November, December. And I know in America it seems like vacation holiday is a lot shorter than other places that I've heard. I just don't know, because this is all I've known. But it's usually like 1 week, you know, a year you get, and that's just not even enough time to decompress and then start folks doing other things and relaxing. And so it's like I want to take off that holiday season so that I can actually enjoy the holidays, and that's when my kids' birthdays are, and that's when you know, obviously Christmas and Halloween and New Year's, and go through all that stuff and actually experience it. I feel like I go to work and I miss all these parties because I'm like, I gotta get this done because I'm the only one who said they're gonna work on it this weekend or whatever. So
no, these are some very valid goals that you're seeing there. I totally agree with you. Now, the situation, by the way, just to give this little trivia about Germany, we are very conscious of the several vacations, and every working person in Germany has at least 28 days of vacation every year. That's by law.
Oh, wow.
And you have all the Christian holidays. You have vacation. The companies can't go around that. Not possible.
Wow.
And
I need to move there.
And that, of course, is but it's cold and you can't do surfing.
I can wear a wetsuit.
But you can wear leather pants and do yodeling.
There you go.
and ride cows.
Yeah.
No, but I totally get what you're saying. Well, that's really cool. Yeah. And I can see that you are longing for that, for some time to just decompress, like you said.
Yeah.
Also over a longer period, because I personally, from my personal experience, I would say if I go on vacation, I need the first week just to get out of the of this thinking mode of work. I have to arrive where I am on my vacation, and it takes at least a week, and then I can start to enjoy the vacation. And if you only have a week of vacation total, that's completely impossible to do.
Yeah. Oh, I'm so looking forward to it someday.
But now, now let's...
But I took 2.5 weeks off now, but it's all unpaid. And let's see, they sent me a letter and said, if you don't come back, you're probably going to be terminated. So, it's great having an employer. So,
I can imagine.
Yeah.
Well, they are afraid that you won't come back.
Yeah, I know. It's just a legal procedure.
I remember... Yeah. I don't know what. Just some. I don't know if you even feel comfortable talking about that. But do the guys at your work know about these escapades of you, what you're doing, and what you did with your Kickstarter campaign?
A little bit. My closer friends there, I let them in on what I'm doing, and there's a lot of people who follow me on Facebook or something, and they're like. They come up to me at lunch and they're like $80,000, and I'm like, yeah, can you believe it? And so I know some people are watching, but I for the most part I keep it kind of a low profile, just because I don't.
I guess that's a good idea.
Work's the most important thing when you're at work, and that's how it has to be perceived anyway. And so, if people start questioning if you're, not getting the job done because you're not focused on it, then, so for the most part, I let my friends know, and people that I, that are interested in personal projects, and
my personal experience is that bosses, especially, are very ignorant about all these things because they don't understand it.
Yeah.
I vividly remember the time when I had my Kickstarter campaign last year. I was on a very small company, only 15 people or so, and it would have been completely impossible to hide something like this, because if one knows, everyone knows, and. But the interesting thing is that no one really cared about it because they didn't understand it. They didn't understand what I was doing and how it was working. And they were very surprised when I finally quit my job because they didn't know what happened and what I'm going to do in the future and stuff like that. Man. Not that I am, but it was a weird time. And I can when I imagined you during the campaign, because from your updates I knew that you were sitting at your job during that time, and I remember it so well, the 30 days when I was sitting at my job 8 hours a day and couldn't I couldn't stand it not to look every hour or so or half an hour at the stats, and oh man, it's really distracting, and it was really a hard time, and I was a nervous wreck over that time, and it's really nothing you wish for, but of course it comes with its merits.
I was really looking forward to it being over by the time the last week rolled around, but at the same time, you're like, you want it to keep growing and keep going because, man, the potential's so huge. But man, it's just juggling all that stuff is tiring.
This is really a test for you as a person. A Kickstarter campaign is really a test. It's fighting your fantasies and your expectations. It's dealing with anxiety and disbelief over 30 days, and it's really exhausting. It's really exhausting.
Really.
And I guess you're really happy that it's over.
And what's funny is it doesn't matter what level it gets to, you still it's still exhausting.
You adapt to it.
You're never get to a place where you're like, I can't believe I made it this far. You're always You're always like, I made more than this. That's good, but I could also make this. But should I worry about that? Should I? It's like it's always a mind trip, and always screws with you, no matter what amount you raise. Anyway,
it's really silly. It's really silly because what you actually could have done would have been to, after the funding goal was reached, after a couple of days, just relax and sit back and be happy and have no problem with that. But it's not like that. I know exactly what you're saying. You adapt to the new goals, and I can imagine how you were sitting there thinking about what your next chart will look like, how high you are going to make it, what amount of money you will incorporate in it. That's
when my campaign was ending, and we got to talk about your campaign too, because everyone, you got to check out Daniel's new campaign. He launched it 3 days ago now. And
it was on Friday.
So I'll have to put links up, and we can talk about that in a little bit too, how that's going with you. When I was wrapping up my campaign, people were like, a lot of new fans were like, you have a lot of great content on your blog. Why don't you could talk about like how you successfully did a Kickstarter campaign, and it just opened my whole mind and eyes to like this how-to book that I've been working on for like 3 years. You know, all my blog posts, I've been putting them together and rewriting them and putting new information that I've learned. And the reason I haven't been blogging as much is because, well, first I was trying to get done with the second book, but I wanted to save it for a how-to book before I start blogging a lot more, you know, so that if people like what I'm blogging about, they could always buy the book. You know, I'm thinking about.
Did you know that your articles about making a Kickstarter campaign are linked on the Kickstarter side? That's pretty amazing.
Really cool. They've been always sending me traffic. It's been pretty cool. But it made me realize I need to finish this, you know, this how-to book. I mean, I basically have the first draft done, and I just need to, you know, really go through it and hack it apart and send it to my editor, who already hacked it apart some. And, you know, it's just, it's so close to being done, and I could launch a Kickstarter for that, you know, and I'm just like, why not? You know, like this stuff it's all been gelling. It's all been, I've been working so hard on this stuff for so long, to just not follow through with it would just be awful, you know? So, because the idea with the how-to book was I wanted to put it on Amazon so you could download it for like $5 or something. And then it would be through their print on demand service. So if you paid whatever, 15 or something, it would be sent to you through their service, and then it's just something that I don't have to do anything with to maintain. And I was thinking of doing an audio version where I actually record, you know, speak it, you know, say the whole book, which would be kind of fun. I have all this stuff to do it, so I might as well. Okay, I gotta stop again. This book I was talking about is finished. It's actually done. It's called Unnatural Talent. You can get it on Amazon, just like I was talking about. And yes, there's an audio version of it too. I launched a Kickstarter for that years ago, and it failed. I only got like 60 backers on it. And so it was quite a shock, because I thought, well, of course I would get a lot of backers. I got 107,000 on this last Kickstarter, so why wouldn't I get at least a fraction of that? Well, you know, some people aren't into an audiobook of a how-to book about making comics. So, but you can get it, Unnatural Talent. It's done. So anyway, back to the conversation.
That reminds me of this this book. I can't remember the author's name because I can't remember names. But it was the title was Free, I guess. The book's title was Free. It was by this Wired.com editor. Okay. And he that was what he was doing. He offered his book for free in an unabridged version, and even in an audiobook version where you can just listen to it unabridged. Okay. And he sold the book in an abridged version for money, because his logic was that editing something so that it is distilled, that it is devoid of any surplus, is actually worth something.
Oh, yeah.
So that he would sell the people the shorter version. That was a brilliant thought.
Yeah.
I thought.
Does he have any statistics on how it did for him with that?
Oh, I have no idea. It's it's not a recent project. It's I learned about the book 1.5 years ago and listened to the audio book, and it's great. It has some great thoughts, but it was just this striking thought to say something that is actually shorter and is edited is worth more than an unabridged version. I guess because
it's similar to what I'm doing, because I want to pretty much put everything I've written onto my blog eventually, you know, in little chunks, and but all the idea with that would be to always be able to have something to sell at the end of each, you know, article that I write. If you like this, you can get everything, you know, and more in this. And so it's kind of like I've always been putting it out there for free and just like the best information I can gather that I've used for myself. putting it out there for free. But the idea is that, when I collect it and actually make it into a book that has a table of contents and a structure so you can find it easy, and it's organized, and it's thought out from start to finish, that is something I think people would pay money for. Definitely. Not to mention I'm hiring an editor and a designer, and it's going to cost me probably a couple $1,000s to put it all together so it's right.
But if I see your last Kickstarter campaign, that might be an investment worth making. And
I just saw a new Kickstarter for I Draw Comics, or I think it's called. This guy who did the campaign for I Draw Cars, and it did real well. And the I Draw Comics one is I don't know if it's over 200,000 yet, but that just tells me there's this how-to content is just, it's huge. I mean, I have this book practically written. I would be stupid at this point to not just offer it, to finish it. Yeah. So anyway.
Well, I guess we will see something from that.
Yeah, I'm hoping within 6 months I can start a campaign for that, and then
cool.
And then my next graphic novel, which I'm so excited about, finally starting.
But I'm really looking forward to find out what that's going to be.
Yes, I can't wait.
Unbelievable.
So,
but now what I really wish to do is to talk a little bit about the actual Kickstarter campaign and how it developed and what factors you. I guess what when I know you, should I know you right? You did some. You already had a lot of thoughts how it went so far. What were the mechanics about that? Where the people came from? What I really found very interesting about your Kickstarter campaign was this huge peak at the beginning. And what I really was asking myself was where did these people come from? Because I read your updates, and you were saying that you hadn't even emailed all people that you could have emailed at that point. So have you analyzed the income of backers? I know that that Kickstarter gives quite some nice statistics about that. Yeah. Do you have any ideas what the history of this campaign was?
Yeah, let me actually go to my Kickstarter and then I can tell you some of those stats, because they're kind of interesting. Even though it is hard to figure out exactly where everything comes from.
Of course, you have to do a lot of guesswork, but I would really be interested in any bit you could share, because that really left me quite flabbergasted is a word. That was huge.
Oops, wrong password.
So what I guess, for example, what you surely have done was to leave an update on the old Kickstarter campaign for book 1.
Yes. Okay, I just loaded up the page. So this Kickstarter started providing stats, and and the first campaign I didn't have any stats. So this was really fun to figure to see what percentage was coming from what. And the first thought I had was I need to the first thought was I need to finish the paintings for my first Kickstarter before I announce a new Kickstarter. And I had two outstanding paintings, and I was like, I just need to finish these, but I have so much work to do. So I just, I whipped them out, and I put more work into those last two just to kind of reward the people who waited a year for them, or a couple of years, I guess. But sent them out, and then updated Kickstarter, my first campaign, saying, here's, I finished all the paintings, so you guys should be getting them now. Yeah. Oh, and by the way, I have a new Kickstarter for the second volume, blah, blah, blah. Here's a link to it. And so I did that, and then immediately after that, I sent announcement to my mailing list from my blog. At the time, I had about 450, I think, people on my Remind blog mailing list. And I feel like the people that are on that mailing list are hardcore because because I've had so many mailing lists in the past as I'm experimenting, and then I switch to another one and I say, hey guys, can you join this one instead? You know, because it's all about opt-in. You don't want to just transfer people over, because then they'll say this is spam, and then the system will, you know, Gmail will start shutting your email down whenever it comes out and not let it through. So you want to be real careful when you're getting emails to let people opt in and say, I want to continue subscribing to your stuff. So I switched. I don't know. I was on some weird Google group mail thing at first because it was free, and then that just had a lot of spam in it because of the way it was set up. So I switched to MailChimp, but then that was too much work and confusing, and so then I switched to this other one called Tiny Letter, which was super easy and great, but I don't think there was a very successful rate of delivery, which is a problem with email lists. So then I switched to Aweber, which is kind of the big one here anyway. It costs money, especially the bigger the list gets. You got to start paying monthly. And but I just switched because it was just kind of like the marketing email thing. So all these times I switched and said, hey, can you join my new one? You know, and it was always like
was a real filtering
and it was always a fraction of the people who would come over, and then everybody else was just be like, oh well, I guess they don't, you know, really, you know, if they don't care, they don't care. So I mean, and it's kind of good because if everybody came over, I would have like over 1,000 people, and then I'd pay a lot more for it. So anyway,
but this is interesting because if I do a quick math, if you say you have about 400 or 500 people on the mailing list, and if I remember right, the first big wave of backers in the first 48 hours would have been 200 people or something like that. So that means that probably you had an unbelievable conversion rate. If you're just talking hypothetically about the people on your mailing list, so that of 500 people, actually 200 joined into the deal, which is an enormous conversion rate, and this is definitely would definitely be the case because you have the absolute hardcore fans on your mailing list, filtered through several filters.
And you know, I know a lot of those people are on vacation, or they are at work, or they don't, you know, they're like my wife, who they have 400 messages in their inbox. So it's hard for them to see what they're missing if they miss a day. So, you know, I know that everybody didn't necessarily get the message that was in the mailing list, but, you know, there was like 360 people from Kickstarter who quite possibly got the message too, because Kickstarter emails you when you have an update unless you unsubscribe from the emails. So assuming people didn't unsubscribe from my first campaign, there's a fraction that got that. And then I, at the same time as all that, so the Kickstarter update, the mailing list, and then I posted a blog post on Tuesday. I was trying to shoot for Monday, which would have been a bigger explosion at the start, but it wasn't approved until Monday night, so I launched it Tuesday morning, and so even so, it did really well. So, you know, it's really those hardcore fans who have been waiting for me to announce it for years, because I know there's a lot of those people, because every convention show I go to, about half the people come up and say, when's number 2 coming out? You know? And,
of course.
So, you know, I think that was the biggest thing, is just building, you know, over the last 3 years, it's just been, I've been slowly building that audience, and the first book proved, I think, to a lot of people that it's quality or whatever it is, you know, and so they're just waiting to pull the trigger as soon as I announce it. And I mean, I know that's how I am with my you know, favorites.
No, but you're right. You didn't have to convince anyone about the quality of the book anymore, because you could actually show the first book, and people that have the first book know that it's high quality, and know that they can expect the same for the second printing. So that is definitely was a high advantage on your side.
And that initial surge, you know, really fed the campaign, because that hit my goal, and then it was featured a week, like less than a week later, I think, on Kickstarter's homepage. You know, and that alone brought in about $10,000. Home Spotlight was $10,900. You know, 125 backers from that one day that Kickstarter put it on their homepage. And then the other thing is Comics Discover. So when people are searching Kickstarter in the comics category, trying to find something new, there was 247 people, $20,000 in pledges.
Oh, yeah.
So this is people who, after I've made my first step, and it's like, all my dedicated fans like jumped in and supported it. Then all these other people are like, what is this? Like, why is this doing so well? And so, that gives everybody else confidence. So I think that initial fan, everybody always says in business, like, your best customer is your existing customers, your repeat customers, because you've already sold them. The hardest thing is selling a new customer. So, and I think the second best thing is if those customers are so dedicated that they convince other people, and that's, I think that was a huge thing. Like, once I started realizing, that if I get these stretch goals in place that people really want, I mean, I wanted to do a making of book 2. I didn't think I would hit 100,000, but I put that up there because I was like, if I'm willing to spend a lot of the money I make from this on this, if people are willing to share it, and those stretch goals, man, people went wild trying to share this, and I know people shared it with people, not just online and on Twitter, but people were emailing me saying, me and my office mate gave each other a high five when we hit 100,000. So one of those people saw it and then shared it with their office mate. So it's like, that goes such a long way if you can give people something to be excited about. So, and I'm going to make that making of book as good as I can. At first, I was planning on doing it someday eventually, and I was just going to have it be art and whatever, but now I'm going to actually put some thought into it, because when my next book comes out, when my next Kickstarter comes out, I want people to remember like how good they got it when they pledged on this one, and I think that's just the thing that most businesses fail at, is they try to figure out how to make the most money, the best bottom line, and get the cheapest product into people's hands for the most money, and blah, blah, blah. Yeah. And when you're like, pushing to a niche audience, it's like, the more you can give, the more you'll get in return, So if I just put out something junky, my next book saying, oh, my fan base is here, woohoo, my next campaign.
Right.
And it's all...
Yeah, you're totally
right.
right.
Then those people are just, it's just going to ruin all those relationships I built, So, but I think, man, if you can really give people more than what they expected, the word of mouth is going to just make your success grow more every single time you launch something new, whether it's Kickstarter or just pre-orders on your website. So anyway,
no, that's true. Yeah, I guess you're right, and I too think that the way you filled up your campaign with all these little goals and all these little extras, which I, as a backer, am already looking forward to tremendously. That really had a huge impact on the whole thing.
The way I've decided to do that, I'll kind of take you back and kind of walk through how I came to the decisions I made. A lot of it started with the Order of the Stick campaign, and I'm not saying that that there was is the most it is what it is, but he made a lot of money, and what happened is he had 10,000 backers, and that was the best statistic that you could dig through, and I followed it every day just because I was seeing what he was doing, and it was all an experiment to him, obviously. But what happened is when he would announce these things, you could see in the numbers and in the backers exactly what
Yeah.
impacted people. Like on my first campaign, I had 300 backers. So it's really hard, even if
Yeah.
I had statistics, it's really hard to see what impacted people, what people wanted, what
you're right.
what really mattered. But in watching his campaign with 10,000 people and over 1 million in sales and all these attempts at stretch goals and whatever else he was doing, like you really could see what worked, And so that really opened my eyes. I never considered stretch goals, before that. I never considered giving people a lot more stuff for free, just throwing it in for free. Why would I do that?
Right.
But it worked so well. And I think a lot of people started following that, and me obviously too. Another thing, okay, so there was that. And that was when I first started strategizing, like, okay, this is how I'm going to approach it differently this time. And then when I launched it, I had a whole pile of things, a whole pile of options, rewards and stuff. And I was so confused with what people wanted because, it was just a guess. And so I ended up stripping it completely down to the core thing that I knew people wanted, which was the book. The book or the box set. Either volume 2 or volume 2, 1 and 2 in a box set, or just volume 1 and 2. That was I think I had 4 options when I first launched it. And it wasn't because that's all I wanted to do. It's just because I knew the clarity of that made it real easy for people to make a decision, and I knew that was the main thing people were after. So and then it gave me room to add to it and strategize what I would add to it every day or every other day, depending on how it goes. And I think that was a huge part, because everything you add, man, it makes a whole new level of complexity to your system, especially the way Kickstarter's set up. Because
I was thinking about that too when I followed your Kickstarter campaign. I thought, man, he's really going out of his mind with these things, and this will complicate things a lot. But it's working.
Yeah, exactly.
It really had a huge impact on the whole thing, and I guess it's just maybe it's just work you have to put into it.
That's
to
kind of
make it
that's kind of the conclusion I came to. Like at first I was like, there's no way I would let people add things to their order. Like that would just make it, all these pledges complicated. But 1,000 orders anyway is complicated, and I'm going to have to hire an assistant to help me. My wife's going to help me pack, and I'm probably going to have to hire somebody else to just help me place orders and keep track of it, and we already have a huge,
I can't believe
we're going to buy huge binders so that we can print out 1,500 pieces of paper, and one copy is red and one copy is green and one's, white. And I'll send off the red one when I fulfill the order so that I can clearly see that the orders are out. And if there's any red ones left, it's like, so this is going to be 4,000 sheets of paper in binders. So, but the other option is, just make it super simple and not make just make a fraction of what I was able to make. At the end of the day, just making a graphic novel in the first place is a ton of work. It's years and years worth of work. So I might as well.
Yeah, you're right.
I might as well just do, expect to do the work. Like, this is a dream come true to have this. So, like I say, I could be doing this, or I could go to work and work for my boss.
And just to connect to the thought of the beginning, you could do it in a way where you say, I'm working half a year on my content, on my book, for example, and then I completely plan and anticipate to work a full month on nothing else than having my Kickstarter campaign, and then another 1 or even 2 months only with fulfilling.
Exactly.
That might be a possibility.
Exactly.
And you wouldn't have to stress out about
that. That is exactly my thoughts with it. Is like, why not just factor this in as part of the job of making a graphic novel?
Yeah, exactly.
So let's see, where was I with
Yeah, we arrived at the stretch goals.
So then, the stretch goals were like, when I first started, I was like, okay, once I hit my goal, then depending on what people are wanting, because I didn't really know what people wanted, I'll start offering these things and kind of fill it out and add more rewards to it, and eventually people started requesting things, and every day it seems like there would be a new mass question that everybody would email me at the same time and ask. Like the first thing was shipping. Like, why does it cost more than twice as much to send 2 books as it does one? Why don't I just make 2 accounts and buy 2 books individually? And my answer is like, well, I'm not charging you what it actually costs me to ship. It costs more than that. I'm just trying to make sure that that the shipping doesn't get in the way. I'm willing to pay $10 or $15 or $20 to, out of a big order to ship it out of my own pocket if someone's able to pay $30 or $35 or $40, if it costs that much. Stop. Whoa. Stop the recording. Okay. This is me again in 2017. I just got to say, that was all a great idea, and it was really loving of me to want to help people by paying $20 out of their shipping. But, oh my goodness, that was the biggest mistake I made. And I think it's the biggest mistake most people make with Kickstarter is underestimating shipping. That adds up a lot really fast, and it can just become this giant that can destroy your campaign. This was one of the biggest lessons I learned, is the shipping for this thing cost way more than I expected, and someone's got to pay for it. And it's either people individually paying for the books that they want, or it's me paying a bunch of extra money for 1,000 orders. You know what I'm saying? It may seem fine if you can afford it for, 10 people, but remember, Kickstarters can become big, and then it can destroy all your profits. So anyway, I just want to add that real quick before we continue this conversation back from 2012. I just didn't want that to get in the way. But anyway, so I got a lot of these complaints, and people questioning why I was charging so much. And so, that ended up being a stretch goal. Well, if we can get over 50,000, then I'll reduce the shipping. And, I think you were one of the ones who, maybe it was you, who emailed me and said, maybe people will drop their pledge amount if you do that. And it might, I don't know, maybe it wasn't you.
No, it wasn't me.
Okay.
No, I sent you an email or a comment that was suggesting that you would put your reward chart, this complicated thing with the little dots, onto your homepage.
Yeah.
But it also makes sense that what you just mentioned.
But what happened? I just was confident that if I'm giving back to people who are supporting me, I don't know why people would take advantage of me and just use me, And there's a couple people who they were trying to take advantage, but I don't think they knew they were taking advantage of me, because when you go to the store and you go, oh, I'm gonna get cut this coupon and do this, and then I can get it for half price because I use both of these things and blah blah blah. But what people fail to sometimes see is there's a human being at the other side of it. It's me, the artist, publisher, who's doing all the work. And so if you're gaming the system, you're gaming me, and I'm just trying to give to you as much as I can. A good deal anyway. So there's a couple of those emails I had to send out, look, I'm please don't do this. You're just gonna hurt me more.
but I think it really makes a difference, because in that case of such a Kickstarter campaign, you're not dealing with a faceless crowd out there. You are not. These are not people that would break into a supermarket when the lights are off on the street or something like that. You're having an. Well, I always have to emphasize that you have a really small amount of people there that's doing an unbelievable thing with the support, and I think that keeps it on a level where you really can count on such things like you described. Yeah. That's really an important aspect.
I mean, it's so true. I was at Emerald City Comic Con, and I did a panel on Kickstarter. And the thing that I kept coming back to is Kickstarter is based on trust. I mean, that's all it is. It's I'm trusting that I will give you my money, and that I trust you will give me a product. I trust your product's going to be as good as you say it's going to be. Yeah. And there's no real repercussions, you know. I mean, there's no real, you know, you can't get your money back if it doesn't work, you know. So there are campaigns that fail too, and that the product comes and it's horrible, you know. Like I've pledged on some things that I was very let down. I won't name anything, but it's frustrating, you know. And the thing is, these people are they're funding your dreams. They're entrusting you with some of their hard-earned money to help you succeed. You know, yes, they're getting a product at the end of the day, but you know, if something happens, they might not get their product. You know, so it is trust. It's based on trust. And so yeah, even though there were a couple of those situations, man, it didn't take long to resolve it. I was like, look, this is the truth of the situation. They're like, oh, okay, sorry, I'm going to cancel my other account and then I'll pledge it on it, you know. And so people were just more than eager to work with me. And what was funny is, at the end, you know, when we hit the 100,000 goal, I was starting to when we were getting close, I was getting nervous because I was like, as soon as we touch that, it means I am losing like another, I don't know, probably 20 grand out of the profits of this, because I have to finish making this book. I have to put in the time to make this book. I have to print this book. I have to get it shipped here. I got to ship it out to everybody. I got to pack it. I got to hire someone to help me. You know, like, do I want to just barely hit that? And
well, that was a comfortable situation. You could hope for not hitting it and also hope for hitting it. Both
I know.
At the same
it's
time.
exactly
that's
what
cool.
I was going through. And I was just like, And I don't know if you noticed, but man, I kind of stopped pushing it the last week because I was really nervous that we were just barely going to touch it.
Man.
But then the last day showed up, and I was like, we were like 2,000 away, and it was just climbing like crazy. I was like, okay, we're going to hit this. I need to push this as hard as I can, you know. And then the problem was, you know, I'm not going to be able to make this and send it at the same time as send everything else, so I'm going to have to pay more shipping, and these international orders it's just going to wring me out, you know. And so then I was like, someone I think even suggested it, like why don't you just, you know, ask people to pay for shipping if they want the book. And as soon as I announced that, that's when it shot past 100,000, and it was mainly just because of everybody increasing their pledge. Like you know, if 500 people or even 100 people are all increasing their pledge to pay for shipping, and they're all doing it just like nobody was complaining about it, which I was worried that everyone would be like, oh great, you want more money. You know, everyone was just like, yes. And I even had to set up a PayPal account after it closed, because people were like, I missed the update, but I want to pay for shipping, you know. And so I set up a PayPal account, and I've pulled in over $1,000 for shipping, you know, since it's closed. And so, you know, it's just, people really want to support you. It's definitely not that situation where people go to the grocery store and try to rip off the corporation. You know, people are really
totally
supportive.
Right.
So I think that's another reason why you really got to just give people something way better than they expect, you know. In the end.
That's a good point.
But let's see. So I have my Kickstarter statistics up, and just to kind of show you what a lot of the percentage came from. So the Comics Discover tab was the highest one, with 19% was from people sorting through Kickstarter looking for comics, and they found it. So that's the highest one. So that's huge. You know, $20,000. Direct traffic was the second one, which was probably from my website. I don't know, maybe from, I don't know why it wouldn't say where it's from, but direct traffic. So people knew where they were going, and that was 18,000. So 17%. And then the home spotlight was third place with about 10%. The search was 7%. So this must have been people who knew that I was doing this, and they either were told or they knew about it, but they didn't have a link, and so they went and searched for Remind or my name. And that was like 6%. And then home popular. So the homepage, because it exploded the first day or two, it was listed on the homepage under popular. So that brought in another 5, almost 6%. Embedded widgets. So this would be the widget on my website or whatever, or on other people's blog posts because a lot of people posted it, was 4%. And then Remind Blog, my blog, it says it was 3.7%. But I'm assuming that, that was higher than that because of the direct traffic that doesn't have any names attached to it. And then Twitter was 2%, or almost 3%. Facebook was almost 3%. And then it starts going, down to like random things like staff picks, 48-hour reminder email, so an email that I send out. Recently launched, these are all like 1 or less %. But so those are the high ones.
That's really interesting. And once again, it's what you can see from that is that Kickstarter in itself is a very important instrument. To make this all work. Because I don't even know where I heard that thought, but it really is what Kickstarter does is. Who was saying that? I don't know. I don't want to repeat something that you might have said somewhere or written. The thought was that Kickstarter is providing a service by promoting your things, for example, for a day on a homepage or something like that. Where in all other systems, like in the iTunes Store or on Google Play or whatever, you would have
paying for it.
You are paying for it, or you have to wait for it for an eternity, and even have a lot of luck. So this is really a huge factor why Kickstarter is such a good platform for people that don't have a marketing budget, for example.
It might have been when I talked to Kazoo at his studio. That was one of the things that he said that really stood out. Was if you compare what you are getting on Kickstarter to just any other website where you have to buy that kind of exposure, you would be paying $50,000 for that kind of exposure. But Kickstarter is providing it for free, and it's a place where people come and sift through stuff so they could spend money on it. It's just it's right. Unlike anything else out there right now. I mean,
by the way, I enjoyed that podcast. It was wonderful.
Oh, good.
It was really.
I
great.
got a lot out of that. That was a fun time, beautiful. And I wish I could have recorded more because I was there for like 3 hours, and they showed me like their working process, and it just opened my eyes and blew my mind, and it's just so cool. His studio. I mean, it's just the epitome of what I think every artist wants to have.
That's what every artist wants to have. A cool studio with assistants, with a running project,
with people there to help and get things done and help you make it smooth. It's just so good.
So everyone who hasn't already listened to this podcast, the 2 episodes with Kazu Kibiyushi, it's just great. Go and listen to it after you listen to this podcast.
That's it for this episode of Making Comics, the podcast. Catch the second half of this conversation on the next episode with Daniel Lieske and Jason Brubaker.
Ladies and gentlemen, that was my wife, Chelly. Also, I'm going to be recording a new episode with Doug Tnaple and Ethan Nicole again. So be looking forward to that in a week or so.